and welcome to Seen Through Glass. Now sadly, this video marks the end to my recent adventure in America with this Boxster S. Just in case you're new to the channel or maybe you haven't seen my recent videos, let me bring you up to speed. Back in January, I decided I wanted to take my 911 GT3 to America, do a big road trip that would end up at Monterey Car Week. But then I got the quote back from the shipping company, found out it was going to cost £16,000 to send my car to America and back, and I was like, I'm not sure I can justify that. A few weeks later, I was having a meeting with Swissquote Bank Europe, who I invested some money with at the end of last year. They're all car guys, so I was sharing this dilemma with them when one of them said, can't you just fly to America, buy a car, do your road trip and then sell it? And that was the start of the idea that led to this quite wild adventure. So after that meeting, I began the hunt which led me to this car. I looked high and wide, but I worked very closely with the Ryan Friedman Motorcars team, which is over on the East Coast of America, and specifically Harrison there, to try and track down the perfect vehicle for this trip. Now weirdly, I kind of always thought a Boxster would be the right car. We checked many places, we looked at many different things, but there was something inside of me which thought, let's go Boxster. I was originally going to do the trip in my GT3. I kind of thought I still wanted to do it in a Porsche, and I've always quite liked these cars. Lots of people knock the Boxster. Oh, piece of poo. I don't mind the Friday headlights. I actually quite like them. So whilst we considered other things, one day Harrison shared an Instagram story with me, a friend of his who ran a Porsche workshop, saying we've got this car for sale, we've looked after it for 15 years, one of my mechanics owned it for a ton of that time, it's just had a big service, the IMS has been done, the RMS has been done, the clutch has been done. So whilst the spec wasn't necessarily as exciting as I wanted it to be, I knew it was the right car. So we made an offer, it was accepted, and before I knew it, I'd bought a car in America. But I hadn't paid for it. Let's get into all of that, because the actual technicalities of buying a car in America as a foreigner, not straightforward. Firstly, I mentioned Swissquote Bank Europe a moment ago. Important to declare that they were a sponsor for this trip. They came on board, helped with the logistics and the travel, because it's still not been a cheap trip. But also I actually ended up using one of their products to purchase the car. So it made sense that we could work together, so I could share that information with you, and they could help me out with, some of the costs. I should probably say this is not financial advice. What I'm about to share is my own personal experience. If you are interested in investing or any of Swissquote's products, you should do all of your own research, etc. There's like a full official disclosure in the description below. I just want to share what I did. I used a product called their Lombard loan, which essentially allows you to borrow money against your investment portfolio. Now this has been a super popular product with a whole lot of their existing customers and clients for things like property and art and other investment grade things. But they've seen an upswing in using it for cars, which is why it was offered to me. Because I'm not an American citizen, I don't have a bank account, I don't have a permanent address, I couldn't get any kind of finance in America for this car. I had to pay cash. But by using the Lombard loan, it's super flexible because it's not actually tied to the vehicle. There's no residual values, there's actually no monthly repayments. The interest rates tend to be a lot lower. I could just apply online. It was very straightforward, meaning I could get the cash for this thing, send it over without really too much hassle. So that's what I ended up doing. Once we'd paid for the car, I then had to figure out registration and insurance, which tended to be a lot more complicated. Registration, again as a non-US citizen, my only real option was Montana. Now, American viewers may laugh at this. It's a well-known thing that people do, but as I say, if you are a foreigner trying to buy a car here, it's really your only choice. And there are a number of companies that will do the registration process for you. It cost me $1,000, but it was super easy. I didn't have to go anywhere. I just signed some forms online. The company took care of it all, and I had full legal registration. Insurance, a little harder. I ended up having to use a broker, but that was done via Progressive, and whilst the car was registered in Montana, its garage address, where I was going to keep the car, was actually the Westside Collector car storage unit that Matt Farah runs in Los Angeles, because that's where this car will be spending some time. More on that in a moment. That's a little Easter egg for you all. Anyway, so there we had it. I'd paid for the car, I'd registered it, I'd insured it. All that was left was to get it to the Ryan Friedman Motor Cars team and to Harrison. He took delivery of it and gave it a full detail via Avant-Garde Studios. And they went above and beyond, not only giving the car the most incredible detail I'd ever seen, but also fully ceramic coating it, meaning it was ready for the adventure ahead. Continental also very kindly sent over some brand new Contact Plus Sport tyres, again that would be perfect for the trip that I was doing. And apart from that, we checked a few fluid levels and kind of thought, well, let's suck it and see. So I flew to New York, collected the car and saw it actually for the first time, because apart from a few photos and a few videos that Harrison had sent me when the car was delivered, I hadn't seen it, which was absolutely wild. I have never bought a car quite like that before. And of course, the big standout feature is the chrome wheels, which was a factory option here in the US back in 2002 when this car was made. Initially, I thought they were kind of awful. We did look at ways that maybe we could change them. I actually looked at buying a new set of wheels. We also looked to see if we could actually paint these ones, but firstly, re-chroming them is quite hard, and then painting over the chrome, also not ideal because it flakes up very easily, so we were like, oh look, it's not worth it. The whole point of this is to kind of save money, not go over the top, and I've actually come to love the chrome wheels, especially out here in California in the sunshine. Now, whilst I knew that I liked the idea of a Boxster, and I'm a Porsche fan, and I used to own a car of this era, my 2004 911 40th anniversary, I'd never actually driven a 986 Boxster before, or a Boxster S. So those first few miles were a journey of discovery. But what a discovery it turned out to be. I've spoken about it before. I have like a 500-meter rule. Essentially, if I get in a car and I've never driven it before, I know within the first 500 meters whether it's going to be for me. Not whether it's going to be a good or bad car, but whether I'm going to like it. And I just could tell straight away, this car is a peach. So tight and sharp and just as you would want it to be. It wasn't shaky and creaky and loose and sloppy some cars from this era can be. It felt very well maintained. This interior was immaculate, and I thought, oh my god, I have the journey of a lifetime ahead of me. And that's simply what it turned out to be. Now, unfortunately, I only had about 7 days for the trip across America. That meant I was going to be averaging really 500 miles a day. It's going to be 8 to 10 hours per day, a lot of miles to cover. And based on my experience during Drive the World, during 2019, when I drove my 911 Carrera T across America, and we really zigzagged our way across the US and Canada over 3.5 months, I knew that there's a big section in the middle that's a little boring. Unless you really know where to go and what to do, it can be quite flat and quite dull. So in my mind, I said, I just want to get to Colorado as quickly as possible. That's where the mountains start, and that's where the scenery really starts to change. But I will say, that sort of band on the East Coast between New York and Chicago, and that goes up to cover, what, Montreal, Toronto, Boston, down towards Florida, of course, but also Atlanta. That's a good band. I enjoyed that part of the drive. It was actually super picturesque. Even on the big interstates, it was very pretty. It was really once we sort of got past that it got dull. However, if you've been watching the adventure, you'll know, as I rolled past Denver, I had my first issue with this car. This car, in its life, it averaged about 2,000 miles a year. I did 2,000 miles in 3 days. And I think the car was like, ooh, what? And so unfortunately, the alternator failed. In the grand scheme of things, thank God it happened there. Because post Denver, I was going to be launching it into the mountains, to the Moab Desert, through Joshua Tree, the Grand Canyon, places that did not have a lot of Porsche workshops and also did not have a lot of signal. So if the alternator failed out there, I would have been in big trouble. But I was an hour and a half outside of Denver when the issue struck. We diagnosed it, I managed to find a workshop that really helped, and the problem was fixed within 24 hours and I was back on the road. All I will say is looking after maintaining these cars in America, totally different to the UK experience. Firstly, labour is through the roof here for an import. I mean, they saw me coming slightly because I called up saying I need the car back today. So I think they were like, we can charge for that quick service. By the way, a load of Mustangs driving by. Car Week is still dying down when I'm filming this, so there are still some cool bits in the area. But yeah, that's my only thing. These cars are inherently affordable. It's one of the most affordable Porsches you can get into today. But here in America, maintaining them is not as affordable as it can be in the UK. I use a great shop in the UK called Visac UK. Tom there is super helpful. He's been my go-to contact throughout the trip, and their labor rates are like a third of US labor rates. And just, anyway, I won't get into that. I was helped out, Auto Imports Denver, sorted the car, and I was back on the road. I just lost 24 hours. And that second half of the trip, going through Arizona and Utah, was mind-blowing. It's miles that I will never forget. And it was my first chance to start really opening this car up and feeling what it's like through the corners. Stop sleeping on Boxsters, people. Genuinely, this thing is undeniably brilliant. I think it's taken Toyota with the GR86, Mazda with the MX-5, all of these people, 20 years to catch up with what Porsche were doing with the Boxster in 2002. This car, if you are into your cars, if you're into the world of Porsche, you think, oh, how do I get Boxster? The balance, the precision, the predictability, the flow. It is one of the best driving cars I've ever owned. That is, I'm genuinely not an overstatement. 250 horsepower from the 3.2 litre flat six in the middle. You do have to rev it out. The car is only alive from 4,000 to 7,000 RPM. So you stick really in second and third, maybe fourth gear when you're on the twisty roads. It does still have quite long ratios for the gearbox, but you do find your way working through them, and there is that nice torque curve between 4,000 and 7,000 RPM. And also, it's when the exhaust comes alive. For example, but the best thing is, and I talk about this day in, day out on the podcast with Tony from Gravelwood Car Sales, it's the right amount of power. I have been able to thrash this thing and not only not kill myself or break endless speed limits, but also stay in the mix. Obviously, at the end of the trip, I got up here to Monterey for Car Week, took part in the epic Quail Rally, where I was following things like a Pagani Huayra BC, the Tutil 911K. It looks like I'm just about to come out. That's a Diavolo SE30. But all of these cars, if you drive this car right, you are right in the mix. And people have genuinely been coming up to me, blown away by how capable this thing is. That's nothing to do with my driving. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm useless. But this car can hustle. And because it's so perfectly weighted and balanced and the power is right, it just allows you to enjoy it to the max. My car, my 911 GT3, on this trip, there'd be plenty of times when I couldn't have driven it as hard. It was too firm. I would have been too nervous about crashing into bumps. US roads do have lots of, well, bumps and troughs to them. This thing, the suspension travel is perfect. Those Continental tyres have been fantastic. I've got the slightly smaller rim size, so you can get an 18-inch. These are the 17 inches. They've been great. They just made it a bit more comfortable. These seats are fantastic. The visibility is perfect. I've had the roof down like literally 100% of the way. There's been like a couple of moments it's been too hot, well, I've put the roof up, but most of the time it's been roof down cruising. I for some reason didn't get this rear buffeting shield. It just didn't come with the car when I bought it. So there is a bit more wind in the cabin than there should be, but it's totally manageable. I've had the sound system on. There's endless space to shove stuff away. I have been living in this car for a period of time and I've just got all of these cubby holes. The practicality is mind-boggling. And look, this is a 22-year-old car. It does have some elements that show up that age, but fundamentally it's all stuff that could easily be worked on. And as time has gone on, I've just fallen in love with this thing more and more. And it's the fact that everywhere I've gone, people have gone, oh hey, are you that guy driving the Boxster? And they've wanted to talk about it, they've wanted to share with it, they're interested in it, they own Boxsters themselves. It's a people's car. The joy from that has been so amazing. And so as time has gone on, and as this trip has been approaching the end, and I've been thinking, that means that I should be selling this car, because that was always the plan, right? Sell the car, lose as little money as possible, and be like, I made the right choice. I should have taken the GT3, that was the thing to do. But I don't want to. Genuinely, I don't want to. It's too good. I have just ticked over to 50,000 miles. So I've done 5,000 miles or just under that during my ownership experience. And I want to do another 50,000. Now, spending time here in Car Week amongst incredible people, collectors, enthusiasts, workshops, I have started to think about, well, if I did keep it, would I do anything to it? Apart from ironing out some of the reliability foibles. This window regulator isn't quite working. Sometimes the rear boot latch doesn't quite click in. You have to really slam it down. Just things like that. Would I improve the experience at all? Genuinely, either I would want to give like a 20 or 30 horsepower boost, which the 550 Spider edition or Celebration variant of the Boxster got, so that wouldn't be hard to do. Maybe improve the brakes slightly. I would just like a little bit more, well, actually, you know, brake longevity. When you really start pushing on in these cars, the brakes do tend to fade a little bit. And an exhaust. That's all I would need. Otherwise, I don't think I would touch it. And it could be a forever car. Would I ship it back to the UK? No. Because it would cost half as much as the car is worth to get it to the UK. And in the UK, these cars are readily available for £10,000 or £15,000, depending on what level of car you want. You can get them sub 10k. It would make no sense to ship this car back to the UK. But as a car that I could leave here and come back to the US a couple of times a year and drive, I mean, I already own it. And yes, it's not an insignificant amount of money, but it's tied up with this Lombard loan from Swissquote, and because of the flexibility, because I don't owe that money back in a certain period of time, as is traditional with other forms of car financing, I can be relaxed with it. Of course, I will keep an eye on everything that's going on, but if I suddenly need to sell it, these cars are in demand. I could stick it on Bring a Trailer, which is a famous online auction site here. I've had enough messages from you all that are interested that if I suddenly go, right, I want to repay that loan, I need that money back, let's get it sold. But at least for the short term, sorry, here come the boys. Go on, lads. Oh, a couple of friends of mine in a oak green metallic touring. Anyway, yeah, just for the I mean, at least for 6 months more, just to eke it out, because I feel like I haven't fulfilled the potential of this car. It was such a quick trip. In January and February, when the UK is miserable, wouldn't it be cool to come back out here, maybe drive across to Florida, attend some of the amazing events there that happen at that time of year, visit some more YouTubers, visit some more destinations, do some more Porsche stuff, maybe visit some garages and workshops that could do that fettling I mentioned. I think to get rid of this car now feels too soon. I think I would miss it immediately and probably end up buying one in the UK. I'm not certain Boxster life in the UK is the same as Boxster life in the summer in America or in California. The only other thing that plays on my mind is I spent a lot of time this week around Tuthill Porsches. Of course, at the Quail they launched this incredible GT1 project, but I drove 911K. There's been a few other Tuthill projects on the rally with us and around me. And is there something in going really extreme and creating the ultimate 986 Boxster? You know, these cars, if you spend 40 or 50 grand, really taking it into a Boxster with a GT3-esque engine and setup, that's quite a vibe. But I think it then really takes things away from what is the purity of this car. This is such pure analog driving joy. And maybe if you go to that level of ripping it apart and starting again and creating this $95,000 Boxster Resto mod, maybe it's a bit too much, but it's just in there somewhere. So, what is the actual plan? The plan is the car's going to go back to LA and sit with Matt Farah at Westside Collector Car Storage. He's going to hold on to it. I don't think I'll get back out here again this year. I might be wrong. October and November, there's potential I could come back out. But then I think January, February, March, come back out, drive the car back across the country, as I say, over to Florida, do some bits over there, attend some events, do some rallies, and then make a decision in that first half of the year, okay, did I really miss it? Do I really need it? Is it a bit over the top? I don't know, but as I say, stop sleeping on Boxsters, people. These things are spectacular, and this trip has been sensational. I wouldn't change anything about it. I know it's been short at times, but the memories I have been superb. So once again, thank you to Swiss Quote for their support on the trip. As I said, I couldn't have done it without them, mainly because they came up with the idea, but also it's allowed me the freedom and the flexibility to work out what to do next and to take my time, which is what I love. If you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Stay subscribed. We're heading back to the UK. Things are going to be happening, and this car will be back on the channel at some point in the near future. So those of you that were tempted to buy it, I'm sorry, you got to hold on. But March, April next year, maybe you'll have your chance. Thanks for watching. See you next week.